pest control specialists are called upon to make dozens of decisions every day. For example, when using insecticides, you have to decide which active ingredient you'll use, which formulation, your rate of application, and which piece of equipment or application device you'll use to do the job. For over 25 years, pest management professionals have relied upon System 3 from Whitmire Microgen Research Laboratories for making precision applications of residual and non-residual insecticides. System 3 is ideal, whether you're making crack and crevice injections, void treatments, directed contact applications, or space treatment. System 3 is practically indestructible and requires very little maintenance. If you'll assemble and maintain System 3 correctly, it should give you years of reliable performance. With that in mind, let's take a couple of minutes and review the correct assembly and maintenance of System 3. For those of you new to structural pest control, System 3 Onyx is an application device designed for the precision placement of specially formulated residual and non-residual insecticides manufactured by Whitmire Microgen Research Laboratories. Now, before we discuss System 3 Onyx in detail, let's take a look at what an aerosol insecticide is. Now, when you see one, it probably looks like this. But before it got in this form, it looked like that. This is the aerosol can. The specially formulated products are placed in the can. And then the siphon tube attached to the valve is placed in the can and crimped tightly. Now, you may have noticed the siphon tube's quite long and pulls product off the bottom of the can. Once that is crimped tightly, there's only one way for the product to get out of the can, and that's through this valve. You actuate this valve in the following manner. If you have a product like this, you remove the cap and take the actuator with the injection tube attached and carefully place it on the valve. Now, when you depress the actuator, it releases product, flows up through the siphon tube and out through the injection tube. That's the way aerosol products work. Now, 25 years ago, Whitmire Microgen had an idea of how to improve the professional application of their residual and non-residual aerosol insecticides. That idea became System 3 Onyx. So the function of System 3 Onyx is to enhance insecticide application. Now, for the next few moments, I'm going to be discussing the Onyx version of System 3 only. Now, when you receive your System 3 initially, it may come in a box something like this. There are a number of things in the box that I'd like to show you. First is System 3 itself. We'll remove it from this plastic bag. Then there is a utility belt. This belt is designed to be worn around your waist, and on the belt is the pouch. Now, the role of the pouch, or its function, is to simply hold the aerosol can. Pouch and can go on the belt. System 3 attaches to the top of the can. Now let's look at System 3 in some detail. There are a number of parts to System 3 that I'd like to point out to you. We'll begin at the can end, where it attaches to the can. And the first part we come to is the can clamp. This clamp attaches directly to the top of the can. The Onyx version of System 3 can clamp has a W stamped right there on top of the can clamp, so you'll know it's the one you should be using. There are threads in this center hole. Once it's clamped to the top of the can, Then you screw in the can adapter. This we call the double ring adapter. Again, the most recent version, the Onyx version. Then there is the shutoff valve, spring guards, hose, another spring guard, and the gun. Now the gun has several parts to it. I'd like to show them to you. First, we're going to remove the gun cap. This is the double ring gun cap. Now within the gun cap is a small assembly made up of 3 parts. The spring, the valve, the black valve stem, and the gasket. The gasket goes over the black valve, like so, and the spring fits into the valve stem. It's a 3-piece assembly. That fits in the gun body. This is the gun clamp. It's for attaching to your System 3 utility belt or onto the System 3 pouch. Now those are the primary parts of the System 3. To reassemble, we'll place this valve, spring, and gasket assembly back in the gun body and attach the double ring gun cap. This should be tight, but not overly tight. Now there you have System 3 and its basic components. Now how do we assemble System 3? How do we put it onto a can? Let's look at a case of product, just like you may receive. Let's open it and see what's inside. First, there will usually be some literature packed in here. Material safety data sheets, supplemental labeling, whatever. There'll also be a plastic bag in there. In this plastic bag will be additional injection tubes. There will also be valve stem assemblies for the System 3 gun. Now, there will be 12 extra valve gaskets also in here. More about that in a moment. Let's remove one of the cans. Now, how do you go about assembling System 3 on the can? First step, make certain that the product you have in mind is suitable for use with System 3. How do you know that? Pretty straightforward. Look on the label. Look right at the top of the label. There are a series of icons right there. And this icon in the middle has a picture of a System 3 gun. That means this is a System 3 capable product. Generally speaking, the dust products and the microencapsulated or capsule suspension products are not to be used on System 3. Residual insecticides, contact killers, in most cases are all right for use with System 3. Now let's look at how we assemble it. First step, remove the can cap. There's a black actuator on top of the can. Remove it. Now you remember those small gaskets, 12 of which I said were packed in the plastic bag extra? You take one of those gaskets and place it over the valve on top of the can, just like this. Now you're ready to assemble System 3. Take the can clamp. Remember, the Onyx version of the clamp has a small W imprinted on it. This slides over, or actually under, this crimp on top of the can. Now, when you have the can clamp firmly seated on top of the can, rotate the lever, and here the operative word is snug. You don't want to put it on so tight you can never get it off again, but just good and snug so that there's no play in it. If done properly, it is seated directly above the valve in the can. Now, we're ready to attach System 3. This is the can adapter, double ring Onyx version. It's threaded. We're going to screw it into the can clamp. Now, here's a very important step to remember. Make sure the shutoff valve is in the off position. We don't want product flowing up through system 3 while we're trying to put it on. This is on, this is off. Horizontal. Now, how do you do this easily? My favorite method is to pick up the can, place it on your hip, center the threads, you don't want to cross thread it, directly into the can clamp, and rotate, just like that. Now, you can also place it on top of the table and rotate like that. Both will work. Again, the operative word here is snug. You want it firmly screwed in, but not over tightened. Now, at this point, the product is still, for the most part, in the can. It hasn't moved through system 3 yet. That won't happen until you open the shutoff valve. And when you do, the product will now flow through the hose and up into the gun body. It still won't come out until the black stem is depressed. And you remember we use the black or Onyx actuator with the injection tube attached. Put it on there and you're ready to apply your product with System 3. Now, how's that done? Depress the actuator to apply, release to stop the application. You're ready to go, fully equipped with the most modern version of System 3 Onyx. Now, I realize that some of you may already have System 3s. And in that case, you may have older versions. If you do not currently have the Onyx version of System 3, you need to convert now. How do you do that? Let's take a look. Over the years, Whitmire Microgen has endeavored to improve System 3 each time better technology emerged. Today, the modern version of System 3 is System 3 Onyx. Now, if you are not using the Onyx version of System 3, you need to convert now. It's very easy to do. A conversion kit is available. But first, how do you know if you need to convert? How do you know if you're not using the Onyx version? Well, let's look at an Onyx System 3. Onyx System 3 is pretty easy to identify. Let's begin here at the gun body. First, you will notice that there is a black stem or valve. That is the Onyx valve. Then, the gun cap. You'll notice there are 2 rings on the gun cap. That's part of the Onyx system. Now let's move to the other end of System 3. Something else you want to look for on the can clamp is a small W imprinted in the clamp at this location. Very easy to see. Also, you'll want to note the adapter. The adapter also has 2 rings on it. That means it is part of the Onyx system. If the System 3 you're using today does not have these features, you need to convert now to the Onyx variety. Now let's look at some of the older System 3s so you can actually see the difference between them. Here's an older model. Matter of fact, this is quite old. Let's look up here at the gun. First off, you'll notice that this is an old checkered grip. Doesn't even look like the modern gun found on the Onyx system. Also, you'll notice there are no rings on the gun cap. And look at the stem, the valve stem. It's red or orange. That's certainly not part of the Onyx system. Down here at this end, at the can end, if we look at the can clamp, it doesn't even look like today's clamp. And there is no W stamped on it. Furthermore, looking at the adapter, there is no double ring configuration on the adapter. This is an old System 3 and should not be in use today. Here's a newer model of System 3, but still not the Onyx. You'll notice that the gun body has the gnarled rings, which is part of the Onyx system, but the gun cap, there are no double rings on the gun cap. And the stem, the valve stem, is not black, it's orange or red. That's the old one. Looking down here at the other end of the gun, the can clamp looks a little different from the real early one, but still there is no W stamped on the can clamp. So this is not current. If we look at the adapter, we see one ring on the adapter, not two, which would make it an Onyx. So this is an old System 3 and needs to be converted to the Onyx version. Now that's where the good news comes in. All of the older System 3 models can easily be converted to the Onyx version. You do so by obtaining a conversion kit. See your authorized Whitmire Microgen distributor for information on how to obtain a conversion kit. Now, let's look at how this works. When you open the kit, the first thing you'll find is an instruction sheet. This sheet contains all the information you need to make the conversion from your older System 3 to an Onyx System 3. Now the parts in the kit. There are several primary parts that must be interchanged with your existing System 3. One is the can clamp and the adapter. The other is the gun cap. And finally, the stem, gasket, and spring that go in the gun cap. Those are the three primary ones. Let's look at how you do that. Very simple, really. You can do it by hand. You can take an old gun, remove the gun cap, also removing the valve, spring, and gasket. Take the new Onyx valve, place it in the gun, take the new double ring gun cap, place it over that, tighten it down. You're halfway there. Let's move to the other end. The old clamp that does not have the W stamped on it, get rid of that. You want the new can clamp that has the small W stamped right there. This is the only one you want to use. The adapter is the double ring adapter. Now, changing this out, just a little more effort. What you'll have to do is remove this old single ring adapter. Very simple to do. All you need is a 1/2-inch wrench, a crescent wrench, and a little bit of Teflon tape. You remove this old adapter, put Teflon tape on the threads of the shutoff valve, and screw the new adapter on. Snug. And you've made the change. Now, all you need to remember to do is to use the Onyx or black actuators with the black stem valve on top of the gun body. And from there out, this is the only system that you will be using. Now, there are a couple of other things I need to point out about this. Number one, if you're not using Onyx now, you need to convert. The conversion kits are available, and it takes less than 5 minutes to convert any existing System 3 older versions to the new Onyx version. This way you can take advantage of the new valving system that comes available on all of System 3 compatible products from Whitmire Microgen. On rare occasion, you may experience some difficulty with your System 3 Onyx. Now, there are two basic issues that may come up with System 3. First is that the gun just doesn't spray. Second, you may experience some leaking somewhere within the system. Let's look at both of those briefly. Let's begin with the gun just doesn't spray. What types of things should you be looking at? Well, first, you want to make sure that the shutoff valve is not in the off position. Make sure it's on. If it's in the off position, it's not going to spray. The second thing you may want to check is whether or not the can is empty. You may have used it up and not realized that you need to replace the can. The third thing that can possibly cause the gun not to spray is that the stem valve may be clogged, in which case you should simply remove it and replace it with a new one. Now, the second type of issue that you may encounter with System 3 is it may be leaking. Let's look at some of the more common causes and solutions if you should encounter this particular problem. If leaking is coming from beneath the gun cap, maybe one of two reasons for that. First, it may simply not be tight enough, so try tightening that. If that doesn't solve the problem, remove the gun cap and replace the stem assembly. Go ahead and replace all of it. There are extras of these packaged with every case of Whitmire Microgen System 3 compatible products. Put the new one in, tighten the gun cap on, and that should solve that problem. Now, if at the other end you're experiencing leaking down here around the can clamp, simply tighten the can clamp. If that doesn't seem to solve the problem, the can clamp may be worn out and you may need to discard the old one and replace it. The third type of problem that you may encounter is leaking at the hose fittings. Then reattach the hose to the gun body or the shutoff valve using a new nut and ferrule. Several of these are packaged with each System 3. Now, one other type of leaking problem may occur, and that is it may be leaking here at the can where the System 3 and the can clamp attach to the can. If that's the case, you may have to remove System 3, take off the can clamp, and check to see whether or not you've remembered to place the small black gasket on the can stem. If not, you need to place one on there. If the one on there is not working correctly, replace it. Put a new one on there. Now there you have the most common issues that may arise with the System 3 Onyx. Now in each System 3, there is packed a troubleshooting guide that will take you step by step through the resolution of the issues we just talked about. Now, how about a few tips for the technician? Here we have System 3 Onyx ready for work. Let me share a couple of tips with you. You know, we've learned a lot about working with System 3 over the years. Many operators and technicians have shared their knowledge with us. I'd like to pass a couple of these ideas on to you. First one, where do you keep the gun? Well, the pouch has a handy spot right here that you can hang the gun. Many technicians also prefer to keep it on their belt like that. You know, if you're out in the field, occasionally you may damage or lose this injection tube. So what do? Well, the best idea is to keep some extra ones in this small pouch attached to the larger pouch. That way, no problem if you should lose one. Now, another thing you've got to keep in mind, it's very important. Before you do any work on System 3, replace a stem, replace a can, always make sure you turn the system off before you do. Turn it into the off position. And remember, you're shutting it off here at the can. There is still product in the hose and the gun body. So you may want to turn it off a couple of minutes before you plan to work on it, and then continue to treat cracks and crevices or whatever until the hose and the gun body are empty. Then you can work on it safely. Now, with that in mind, it's a good idea to have one System 3 for your residual products and another System 3 for your non-residual products. In other words, when you go into the field, typically you'll have one System 3 on one side with non-residual contact killers and another System 3 on the other side with your residual products. And once you've attached System 3 to a can, leave it on there. Don't remove it at the end of every day. Leave it on there. At the end of the day, turn it off at the shutoff valve, continue to treat until the hose and gun are empty, and leave it overnight in that manner. Next morning, turn it on and continue to work. When the can is empty, then detach System 3, reattach a fresh can, and continue to work with it until that can is empty. Don't take it on and off. So, have one System 3 for your non-residuals, have another System 3 for your residuals, and leave them on the can until the cans are empty. And oh, remember to put the small black gasket on the valve stem on the can before you attach System 3. Now, one other little tip for you. You know, out in the field, we never know what's going to happen, what may need to be replaced. It's a good idea to take a small plastic bag and put some extra stems, springs, and gaskets in there. 4 or 5 dozen, whatever. Put them in the bag, fold it up, and simply drop it in the bottom of your System 3 pouch. Then you can place the can right in on top of it. Won't hurt them at all. Now, if you get into trouble in the field, you have a maintenance issue, simply remove the can, reach down inside, and you've got your replacement parts right there. So those are a few tips to keep you and your System 3 working efficiently. So there you have it, the most up-to-date information on System 3 Onyx. Now remember, if you're not using the Onyx version of System 3 right now, you need to convert. If you'll do so, you'll have reliable performance from the single best piece of equipment available for the application of Whitmire Microgen residual and non-residual System 3 products. Now, should you require additional information about System 3 Onyx or any other Whitmire Microgen product,